Hello and welcome to a brand new video. Today we are going to be reviewing the World Champions, a new Formula 1 challenger, as Mercedes have unveiled their W08 today. As we're now going to have a look and see whether this is a car worthy of giving either Valtteri Bottas or Lewis Hamilton the World Championship this season, or whether this can finally be the year that Mercedes' dominance is ended, or at least suppressed, by the likes of Ferrari, Red Bull and McLaren. So, let's get into it. As usual, I'll be looking to my right because that's where I've got the screens of the cars. So, let's start with the front of the car. You have a very complex front wing with end plates of a serrated front wing with slot gaps presented, which are equidistant to one another. And it's just down to preference of where you put the end plates and what you do with the front end section of the car. And Mercedes have gone for quite an outward approach, which is about 3/4 of the width of the tyre, as per the new regulations, of course. And they have this serrated effect towards the edges of the front wings, and then the shape is moulded very differently to what we've seen in the Renault and the Sauber. The Force India did it a bit differently, as I pointed out yesterday, to the others, but Mercedes is something that I pick out that perhaps some others don't, but they've gone for a more bog standard 2016 shape of the front wing. Is quite kind of regular, which is going to mean that as the air hits it, it hits it directly, which perhaps I don't think that's a particularly good thing that's come about, as the boomerang style wings, you know, that's going to allow them to cut through the air easier and more effectively compared to this more regular. Obviously there's slight alterations in that kind of rectangular shape, with obviously left and right with these serrations towards either end, but overall I would say that the shape of the Renault is perhaps a better shape, but the actual design on the wing, with the way the end plates are positioned, that's a much better effect, as obviously you want to create mixing and to reduce the overall drag, but increase the front end downforce on the car, as obviously the air is passing from the front wing to the rear of the car. Then as we move a little further back, the general nose shape of the Mercedes is as per 2016 and 15. You know, it's a very standard kind of upside down U, as some people are kind of suggesting, which has been very much the shape of last year's car. Nothing much has changed in that regard. Then the next thing to look is the S-duct. It's a very pronounced Mercedes style S-duct, which is just below Lewis Hamilton's number 44 on the car that you can see in the image, and a very well done piece of machinery, very well coordinated there. But obviously a little bit before that is where you have the vortex generators and the mixing. At this point I'm going to switch to the other image of the side view that I've got here, and you can clearly see the mixing going on with regard to the Mercedes, and this is increasing the air mixing and making it more efficient. So what that's basically doing is it's sending more air towards the rear of the car and allowing the car to cut through the air more effectively and efficiently. This is through multiple winglets on the side by the suspension and the brakes. With the vortex generator, it's making the passenger flow more effective there. Then we get to Mercedes' very clever bit. This is where the witchcrafty stuff occurs, because the front wing is pretty standard, and the S duct, again, that's a pretty standard thing. And yeah, this bit's quite clever. It's a more complex vortex generator than you get in the likes of the Renault, the Sauber, and the Force India, but that's to be expected, and more winglets to make it more efficient. Yeah, we get that, but this is the really witchcraft bit, which is going to get everyone pretty scared, is the fact that we have a three-part barge board. A three-part barge board with this Mercedes. And, well, if you include the little winglet on the side, it's technically a 4-bit, because you have the 3 traditional sections of the barge board with the slot gaps and the serrations in between, and then you have a little winglet to divert the airflow to make it more efficient there, which to an extent, as we'll get on to a little bit later, helps to make it more efficient. So perhaps the shark fin isn't as crucial, as it doesn't look like Mercedes, well, whether Mercedes will or won't adopt a shark fin has been debated already. It's only been unveiled today, but you know, there's some debate whether they will. Obviously, we will see next week. The jury's out whether they will or won't, and we'll see next week whether they do adopt such a technique. But back to their witchcrafty bit with the barge boards and the side pods, very narrow section to be working with, and increasing that mixing that's going on there, allowing the airflow to be more efficient, and then diverting the airflow with that upper winglet is then just taking that a step further. Everything a step further with the resources they have. They just have the ingenuity to do that, which is a very, very good design. Although, sorry, carry on this point. They are the only team so far to have taken the side pods and the barge boards to the maximum width that they're allowed of 1800 millimeters, which kind of shows the potential that has. But then they have gone really tight, the tightest of any team, so that have maximum width at the centre of the car, and then minimum width at the rear of the car seems to be the optimal way to do this, to put this package together. It looks a bit strange from the side rear of the Mercedes, because you just have bits of the floor that are really exposed, and not a lot seems to be going on there, but that seems to be the most effective way, and they're definitely the most effective way. In terms of the packaging of the car, is the best so far. On the floor then, we do have some serrated slot gaps to again try and redirect the airflow that's going on there. Also, something that I picked out is the suspension seems a little bit different with the Mercedes. It's perhaps they've adopted, so obviously there was some controversy in regard to suspension legality. Mercedes, one of the accused teams, along with Ferrari. So we'll have to wait and see in regard to suspension. Obviously, potential for active suspension, but that's not going to happen this year, and they banned the potential suspension system. So it looks like Mercedes still have done something a bit different with the suspension, potentially found a loophole in the regs in that regard, so we'll have to see. And then towards the rear, obviously the most important bit is the fact they have no shark fin, which when I initially looked at it before my seminar this afternoon, I thought, wow, that is a mistake. That is a huge mistake, because if you're not being able to pinpoint exactly where the air is flowing, then how can you be able to determine how is it going to cut through effectively, because you've got a big rear wing there, and the air is just going to crash against that every single time, and the drag is going to be increased. No matter if you're running a Spa and a Monza spec front rear wings, or if you're running your Monaco one, it's just going to hit against it. Even around Monaco, it's just going to lose your time hand over fist. But with that winglet on the side, yes, it's small, but it's effective. And Bottas' run this afternoon, they are potentially adopting a smaller fin on the outside. Obviously, the general curvature, they do have a slight flaking up, so that will make it slightly more efficient. But I think they're going to bring a slightly bigger fin on the offside of the car from where we're looking at it, and have not such a big vulgar fin, which is why I kind of mentioned earlier the potential will they won't they after Bottas's run. So it looks like that is the solution Mercedes are going to adopt, which is very different to what everyone else has done, but then again, they are the only ones that are the world champions. So potentially it is ingenious, or potentially it could cost them the world championship. We'll have to wait and see about that. Again, the exhaust nicely packaged, and they have been able to redirect the air a little bit, make it a bit more efficient towards the back. And the rear wing, it's slightly more obscure, slightly differently put together, a little bit more serrated at the edges, and is more pointed at the tops of the wing. But what can you really say overall? You know, a really good package. Obviously from last year, they're the ones to beat, and they've put together a good effort for this year. Will they win the World Championship? We'll have to wait and see. I think we'll have to wait and see what Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull in particular can do. Obviously Ferrari and McLaren out tomorrow. Just heads up on that. Those videos won't be out till possibly even Saturday morning, to be honest. We'll have to wait and see about that, because I'm going home tomorrow because my reading week, haha, at last. But that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. That is the Mercedes W08. Will they win a 4th championship in a row? Hopefully, for Formula 1's sake, it won't be as dominant as it has been the last 3 seasons, but it looks to be a strong contender again. Goodbye.